Grounded with John Tester and Maritza Giorgio. We're on episode 60, a little bit of a surprise Friday episode because it is October 31st, which means that tomorrow on November 1st, unless we get some huge change today, 42 million people will not get their SNAP benefits. Forbes reports that SNAP accounts for more than $8 billion in grocery sales every month. This is going to have a real impact on everybody, lots of people. So we're going to dive into all things hunger today with two guests who've taught me nearly everything I know about hunger in this country. Senator?
Well, it's good to have them on. I'm going to tell you, it's good to have them on, but it's too bad we're having them on.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
right.
the bottom line here is that this whole government shutdown thing and inflicting pain on people should not be the top priority. For SNAP benefits, I think it's around $20 billion. Guess how much the president gave Argentina? $20 billion
Yeah.
just to protect the investors down there. This is not a big item in the overall scheme of things. I just don't understand why we have to be here. It's just politics at its worst.
Well, and there's a contingency fund, and we're going to get into that. But let's introduce our guests. So we have Josh Protas, who I've known for quite a while as long as I've known Liza Lieberman. So Josh is the Chief Advocacy Officer for Meals on Wheels. He's dedicated much of his career to addressing hunger. Previously, he was with MAZON, a Jewish response to hunger, and we have Liza Lieberman from MAZON joining us as well. So you guys have taught me so much about hunger, the need out there, bullshit policy rules that exist that stop people from actually getting fed, and more. So I'm so thrilled you're here to kind of just help us unravel some of this and walk through it. And really, like, the goal for me, what I would love to do is just break things down, clear up some misconceptions, and help us all come up with tangible ways that we can help, both big policy ways and also small things that each of us can do today. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Good. Thanks for having us.
Okay, so let's just start kind of with the nuts and bolts. I know that this is a fluid situation, and there's a judge that might possibly be stepping in at some point, so we're watching that. But let's start with you, Josh. I mean, what happens tomorrow if nothing happens today? What November 1st, what are we going to see?
Yeah, I mean, even if the judge rules that the USDA has to tap into the reserve funds, I think it's going to take a little bit of time for those funds to get to people's EBT cards. So I think no matter what, tomorrow, people who receive SNAP benefits are going to face some shock.
And let's
Um,
just jump in right now because Liza's putting in the chat that the ruling just came down and there is a
Oh.
temporary injunction
Well,
ordered. So let's continue.
ruling,
on
but
that.
they're still waiting to see on Monday that this is not a for sure funds are out the door. They're basically waiting to see on Monday. It's a step in the right direction, but it doesn't require the release of any funds quite yet.
Okay. So
And,
Josh,
and
oh, go ahead.
excuse me, Maritza. So what you're saying is that decision will be made on Monday?
It sounds like it. There are two cases. One was brought by the attorneys general in a Massachusetts court, and then the other is in Rhode Island. And we have just heard from one of them that it's the motion for the injunction is under advisement while the defendant USDA decides if they will release partial funds.
So Maritza, can I ask a question here? What
Yeah.
what would normally happen on the 1st of November? Would money be automatically put on those cards? So it's ready to go. So is there look, best case scenario, it appears to me that there's going to be at least 2 days where people that don't have any money on their cards aren't going to have any money on their cards.
Yeah, I mean, normally those benefits would go on the first of the month, or it may depend on the state, but they would be automatically put on those EBT, electronic benefit transfer cards. There is going to be at least a couple of days delay, and probably a little bit more because it's going to take a bit of time, and also recognizing that a lot of the staff at USDA has been hollowed out. People who were terminated before, people who are furloughed right now or have been riffed. So they're dealing with a smaller crew, so there may be even a longer delay.
So, Maritza, you should be asking these questions
No,
because
I wanna hear from you.
I'm a farmer. I'm at the beginning end of this equation. So what do people do? I mean, they just don't feed themselves, don't feed their kids, their family goes hungry. I
Well,
mean,
here's I think what the like, because in past shutdowns, we haven't had this happen. This is the
that's
first
correct.
time this has happened, correct, in the SNAP program's history, and so maybe we should explain that. Like, I don't know which one of you wants to tackle that, but this is the first time that the president has said, "No, we have this contingency fund, and we're not gonna use it." Who wants to
Yeah.
tackle that?
I'm happy to start, and Josh, you can jump in. But basically, yeah, even prior Trump administration officials have utilized this contingency fund. We all know the appropriations process has been broken for a while. So this is not the first shutdown we've seen in a while. Usually, SNAP has been okay because of this contingency fund that they luckily have. Some of the other programs don't have this type of contingency fund. So that's why you've been seeing a lot of concern in the past for programs like WIC. Obviously, Josh can speak about the senior feeding programs as well. Tribal food programs also have been a big concern in the past, and there is an unfair burden on tribes, actually. And several tribes have declared a state of emergency because of the SNAP crisis. So it's a confluence of things. They they are just basically choosing not to utilize this funding, instead blaming the Democrats and using it as a political bargaining chip. And yeah, I mean, people are gonna go without. We know parents will go without food so that their kids can eat. And the food pantries are really bracing for a devastatingly busy weekend.
Yeah, and we should just remember it doesn't have to be this way, and it shouldn't be this way. In past shutdowns, USDA officials tapped into these contingency reserves. And if you read the statute, it's extremely clear, and this is what's being challenged in court. But it's not only that USDA has the authority to tap into these reserves, it's obligated to do that. There's not really a question about choice, but this administration has made a political choice to do that, and people are going to be hurt. And Senator, to your question, what do you do if you're not gonna have assistance for several days? I mean, that's exactly the right question. What are you gonna do if you can't put food on the table? I remember when I was working at MAZON, there was a veteran we worked with, Tim Keefe, who's up in Maine, and in Maine, years back, they re-implemented work requirements. They didn't have to, and Tim lost his access to SNAP, which was the only lifeline that he had, and he wound up being homeless for more than a year in Maine. And he went through a series of challenges. He was disabled, but he still was subject to these work requirements. And each office that he went to, he said, "What am I supposed to eat?" They kept closing the door on him. They kept telling him, "Sorry, you don't qualify this. Sorry, you have to go through this hurdle." And he just kept asking people, "What am I supposed to eat?" And nobody had an answer for him. And unfortunately, I think for the 42 million Americans starting tomorrow, they're going to be asking that question without a good answer.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can tell them what the answer is. The answer is you're not gonna have anything to eat because the president of the United States wants to play politics with food, which is very, very, very dangerous. Very dangerous. That's how you control people. That's why we have food security in this country. That's why family farmers are so important. So you're not getting all your food from one place so big corporations could do what the president's doing right now. This is so much bullshit, you guys. It is so much bullshit because real people, the president probably sees them as all being Democrats. That could be further from the truth. These are regular folks. Most of them could give a shit less about politics. Some are Democrats, some are Republicans. Most are just trying to survive. And this is just so crazy. It just drives me insane. Drives me
Yeah.
nuts.
Hunger should never be a political issue. Like as you said, there are Democrats, there are Republicans, there are independents, there are people who of all backgrounds who struggle with food insecurity. But being able to access food shouldn't be a question. That should be part of the guarantee of how we care for those among us in this country. Just meeting basic needs should be a prerequisite in just a given. And there used to be a lot more bipartisan support for these programs, but unfortunately, a lot of that has eroded.
So I
And
do
there's
wanna Oh, go ahead, Liza.
No,
I was just gonna say there's so much rhetoric and misperceptions about who struggles with hunger. It's not urban and rural, it's both. It's not black and white. I mean, racial divides, every divide you can think of. It often, people who are facing hunger, they're not calling a lot of attention to themselves. They're like quietly trying to get through the week or the month or the day maybe and keep food on the table. So this is not you're hearing a lot of misconceptions about, able-bodied people or people who need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps or whatever, and that's just laced with judgment, and, we just feel that no one, regardless of your circumstance, no one deserves the pain and indignity that comes with not being able to feed yourself and your family.
I just wanna say something because I did a little bit of work when I was a US senator, a little bit, not as much as I should have, in soup kitchens and food banks and stuff like that. I'm gonna tell you who these people are. These people are your neighbors, and they don't want you to know that they're out there and they're hard and they don't have enough money to buy the foods, but they're your neighbors. They're not the people on the side of the street that are homeless holding up a sign say, "We'll work for food." These are your neighbors. These are folks who have jobs. These are folks who can't afford to feed their kids. This is unbelievable that we're in this position as the richest country in the world. It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
Well, and I think it's such an im Oh, go ahead, Josh.
I was just gonna say, the richest country in the world, it's not a question of having enough resources. It's not a question of having enough food. Jim McGovern, who's been a great champion of anti-hunger causes in the House, likes to regularly point out that this is just a political choice. It's about having the political will to prioritize this, and unfortunately, making sure people are fed has not been a priority.
I know that I mean, I appreciate what you said, Senator, because I think that in any reporting I've ever done, the only way you can actually move the needle and get people to care is to personalize things. And so we say 42 million people, and that's a number, and people hear a number and it kind of goes over their head. But I think the more we can personalize these stories and talk about it, and I think that I've asked Liza and Josh many times over the years that I've known them, like, aren't you so frustrated because we see the same fight every single year for this, like, the same things, and things that seem like easy policy choices to me don't get done. And I approach it like I remember the first time I ever talked to Josh was about a story on military family hunger, and these junior enlisted service members, they they didn't make enough to be able to afford to put food on the table for their families, but because they had military housing on paper, they made too much to qualify for SNAP, and we were trying to fix that, and I walked in like, "Well, yeah, that seems easy. It seems like everyone will get behind that." Like, "What? Yeah, of course." And it's been going on for years and years and years, and so, what would be from you 2, what would be like a magic wand fix tomorrow if you could fix a policy that would prevent so many Americans from going hungry? What would that look like?
Josh, you wanna go first?
Wow. Well, I mean, this isn't a policy, but I think having a common agreement about a right to food. Um, you think about President Roosevelt's four freedoms and freedom from want, and can't we come to an agreement that people shouldn't struggle to meet their basic needs? And I think to have policies flow from that, not to base policies that are based on negative characterizations of people or judgments of people that you have to be deserving of assistance. I think an agreement that we should make sure people's basic needs are met as just foundational.
Yeah, I think that I don't know that I have a better answer than that, honestly. I think we talk at MAZON a lot about, Jewish values and which are really shared by every faith, and I think they're our highest American values as well. Just the dignity of people and the fact that every single person deserves a chance to live out their day, live out their week, feed their families, and make of their lives what they want. And this is causing pain and indignity rather than letting people survive. So it's a return to that decency, I would think, is the simple answer. And then, someday, hopefully, having some big ideas and creative ideas about how to sustain our local economies and communities. But right now, we're just looking at such a broken system, unfortunately.
And it's also short-sighted because when we allow people to go hungry, it winds up costing us more. We can head off diet-related chronic diseases that cost our healthcare system a tremendous amount by ensuring that people get proper nutrition. I work at Meals on Wheels America, and for Meals on Wheels providers, we can provide that nutritious meal, that moment of social and human connection, wraparound services to a senior for an entire year for roughly the cost of 1 day in a hospital or 10 days in a nursing home. And we know that when we provide those meals and get seniors the nutrition they need, they're much better situated to stay at home where they want to be and live with dignity and independence and out of more costly healthcare and long-term care settings. So, we save our Medicare and Medicaid costs a tremendous amount if we can keep seniors living at home where they want to be. And same for other anti-hunger programs. We help to preserve better health and better health outcomes that are also less costly. So a policy fix would be to have the Congressional Budget Office figure in those kind of preventative cost savings, because this is a big challenge when we try to get legislation done. You have to have a pay for. If there's going to be new expenses, then you're going to have a cut from somewhere else because new revenue is never on the table. So if we took into account what the real cost savings are, and there's tremendous evidence about the cost savings of these programs, that would help to make it easier to fund them.
The other thing I think about too, when we talk about deploying the National Guard to get tough on crime, is that when people are hungry and desperate, that's when crime goes up. So why aren't we focusing on preventative measures to stop crime instead of sending in the National Guard?
Yeah, food security is national security.
Absolutely. And people, I mean, listen, when people are hungry, they can be desperate. I mean, this is about feeding kids, feeding our seniors, the most basic thing to survive. And it's really we're really concerned about the ripple effects that this could have. It's also worth noting that this immediate crisis is happening in the middle of when states and communities and food pantries and advocates are still and those facing hunger are still reeling from the after effects of the sweeping budget cuts this summer. And the one big beautiful bill act, whatever we call it, it really it was an effort to decimate food assistance in this country. And it was, a bit sneaky, and they weren't calling it cuts, but the way that they are cutting the system and changing the structure of it, the Republicans, has really is an effort to destroy food assistance and to go back on the promises that we have made to take care of one another and help when times are tough. So communities are still reeling from this.
I got another one too. Kids don't learn if they're hungry. If you got kids going to school, they don't learn. The long-term economic impacts of that are huge. If that was figured in, that would help too. And one
And
other thing, and another thing that just quite frankly is something that concerns the hell out of me is we're going in. First of all, I happen to live in a state that is fights with Alaska all the time for the highest suicide rate in the country. The mental health implications of this, not just in Montana and Alaska, but for the nation, are massive. They are massive. And to ignore that by policymakers in Washington D.C. is absolutely uh, political. What can I say? Malpractice. It's crazy.
yeah. You think about the mental health strain when you are struggling to put food on the table and feed your kids. And then on top of that, the stigma that you may face because of all of the negative characterizations and the
Yep.
judgments that politicians place, categorizing people as being lazy or just seeking a handout when, nobody's giving up a good paying job for the $2.30 per meal that is the average SNAP benefit. I mean, give me a break. That you can't buy a meal for that much, and people who have an opportunity to work are gonna take that, but SNAP is there to help bridge those gaps when people fall on hard times, and, I it's a lifeline when they don't have anything else.
And if not for the grace of God, anybody could be in that position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Um,
that to the issue we've been working with you, Maritza, on for so long, the military families. No one talks about it. There's a lot of talk about military paychecks right now and troops' paychecks, but a lot of these families were struggling before this. This is, I mean, by the Pentagon's own estimate, 1 in 4 military families, even before this, has been struggling with food insecurity. And that's something no one wants to talk about, but we can't deny it. That doesn't mean it's not happening. These people are living on the brink, and this is really, like, we're calling it now a crisis within a crisis, that these families, some of them were not even able to get to SNAP in the first place, just quietly trying to make do.
well,
And
that's what
and
I thought about. Sorry, Josh, but I thought about that, Liza, because I can't remember which lawmaker, but and a Republican lawmaker posted a video of a food pantry line where veterans were lining up and said, "This is what's happening because of the shutdown." And I wanted to say, no, no, this has been happening. That yes, it's probably exacerbated by the shutdown, but this has been happening, and we've been trying to sound the alarm about this.
yeah, and I was just gonna say veterans are in the mix too, and Meals on Wheels programs across the country serve a large number of veterans, and there's no new federal funding for Meals on Wheels programs that are set up through the Older Americans Act, so that funding is frozen. Meals on Wheels providers are seeing a surge in demand because of both impacts of HR1, the cuts to SNAP and Medicaid that are driving up hunger and hardship, and now the potential freezing of SNAP benefits. And Meals on Wheels programs already had wait lists. 1 in 3 programs has a wait list in this country because there has not been sufficient federal funding to keep up with a growing senior population and rising costs. And among those who get hurt are older veterans who depend on that lifeline of Meals on Wheels for not only the nutritious meal but that moment of social connection.
I wanna talk about kind of what that looks like as you kind of prepare and triage what you're expecting, because I know, like you've both said, like, it's been bad before, but I do wanna mention, Liza, you have an update here. The second court ruling from Rhode Island came down. So what does that mean for us?
So it does sound, I'm getting this in real time, so forgive this, I'm kind of
Breaking news.
law school, breaking news. But, basically, the 2 courts, they ruled, and one of them is kinda waiting till Monday, but it sounds like they are calling for USDA to tap into the contingency funds to cover at least part of the SNAP benefits that would be cut off tomorrow, November 1st. So this is obviously a huge relief, a huge step in the right direction, but I don't think anyone thinks we're out of the woods. I think there will at least be a delay in some places, and, I mean, frankly, they shouldn't have had to sue on this.
That's exactly right.
That this is such a no-brainer. It's just it's crazy
So
to me that
uh,
this even had to come to this.
I'm not an attorney, and neither is my unemployed journalist, an attorney. So the question becomes: is this appealable? Can they
I think
appeal
it
it?
is. My
I think
understanding is
everything's
that it is.
appealable.
I
Well,
would
I've
expect that they will appeal, and then we're gonna say, "You're appealing because you so badly don't wanna provide SNAP funds?"
well, look, man, this guy's tearing the White House down. I mean, he's capable of saying anything, truthfully.
I did see a social media post, and it's not a real, quote from somebody, but it basically said, "No food for you until the Democrats let us take away your health care." And it is kind of this conversation, right, about like which, people are going to suffer here. There's going to be suffering, and why do we have to choose which group of people suffers more?
Except if you live in Argentina. and then there's a $20 billion bailout that goes that direction.
Just tell me both about your programs because I know, like you've talked about, with the one big beautiful act. Senator Tester has another name for it. But as that came to be this summer, what did your need look like before, and then what are your offices doing as far as triage, preparing for what's to come after this weekend? Even with these injunctions, we know that it's going to be a little bit of chaos, probably a lot of chaos.
Yeah, I'll just say for Meals on Wheels providers, we're already seeing in some communities an uptick in demand, and that was, even before the shutdown. It's gonna be worsened now, and without additional funding, that means that there are gonna be longer waits, and more wait lists. Average wait time is 4 months, but in some communities, it's close to 2 years. Um, the you know, some seniors aren't gonna be able to make it 2 years if they're struggling to put food on the table. Um, that is not part of the social contract to make people wait like that. This is ridiculous that we're not providing enough funding to get seniors who need those nutritious meals the help that they deserve. And as I said before, it's short-sighted because it winds up costing our country a lot more. So unfortunately, changes from HR1 are exacerbating need, and the loss of SNAP benefits now in the shutdown context is spiking that demand even higher.
On our part, we don't do any direct service, but we are working with partners around the country that are on the front lines of advocacy on this as well. So while the direct service providers are doing incredible work, many of them are doing it in places where their policymakers, even if they had the authorities and the funds to help connect people with SNAP, they're just not doing it. And we're doing our best to call attention to that this immediate emergency right now is really the latest in a string of attacks that we've seen on poor people, on the programs that assist them. We've seen these from day one of this administration. It's not only bad for families, it's bad for educators, it's bad for the local economies and grocers. It's grad SNAP is an economic stabilizer. So we are doing what we can to advocate at all levels of government to do everything, pull every lever, do everything that's needed to make sure that these people, regardless of circumstance, regardless of social group or zip code, that people are able to get the benefits that they need and deserve. So there's still a huge fallout from what happened over the summer that maybe possibly that's a silver lining, that this has now revealed some of the gaps in the systems that are really systemic problems.
I would hope that would happen, but look, they're talking about insurance rates going up $900 for regular folks, and they ain't batting an eye about fixing that. So I just don't know. I'll be honest with you guys, and maybe you can help me. I don't know what the end game is here. Is the end game because when you have hungry people, your potential for revolution goes way up, way up. Is that the end game? I mean, what the hell is the end game? Hungry people is not a good look for anybody.
I think it's a great question what the end game is, and hungry people is not good for anybody. I think that there is a real intent to shrink the size of the federal government, and I think part of the process of undermining programs and making systems fall apart is to erode trust in government institutions, so that people won't depend on them anymore, and it can lead to a smaller federal government in the end. And people get hurt when that happens. And I hope that the American public comes to understand how important these vital services and programs are, especially, as they're being frozen, as they're being cut, as they're being taken away from people, and that people stand up and use their voice to make sure that we're protecting those institutions that are there, they're not perfect. There are always opportunities for improvement, but the core purpose is to help people, and our social safety net is being eviscerated right now by design.
So what can people do? Like if we have someone listening right now and they're like, because I'll tell you, the amount of posts on Facebook groups that I'm seeing begging for help right now in the last week has gone up dramatically. Every time I see a post, I mean, I'm constantly asking for Venmos. I want to help. I want to do something, but like, what can people do if they're not on those sites, or how do we fix this, or how do we do our part right now, big or small,
Yeah.
to help?
I'm seeing it too. I mean, this issue is literally the top news of every news channel, every newspaper, and it's a huge deal. This is about to hit every state, every congressional district, places where you don't think hunger exists. This is about to hit. Um, I would say donate what you can, obviously. Volunteer if you can, spread awareness, dispel these myths, and don't buy the bullshit. I'll quote Senator Tester here. Um,
Good
don't
quote.
buy it, don't let them get away with it, but also advocate. I think this is a critical advocacy moment as well. If your member of Congress is already stepping up and saying the right things and urging USDA to do the right thing, please thank them. But if they're not, call every damn day and make sure we're all pressing the administration to use every tool possible to prevent this from getting worse. I also think they're in this moment. I don't know if it's getting back to your uh very worrisome concern about the hungry people and revolution and that very scary thinking about an end game, but the courts, I think in this moment there is a lot to be said for the legal system too, and the lawyers who are litigating on this, and it's another very important lever to pull, and I'm really proud that the anti-hunger community is stepping up in that way as well.
I couldn't agree with you more. Unfortunately, I would just say this: where the hell's Congress? Where are they at? I mean, they're Article 1 in the Constitution for good reason, and they're acting like they don't even exist in the Constitution. It's it's undamn believable, and a lot of the people in Congress aren't making themselves available for people to talk about the challenges that are out there with feeding people. They're hiding out. They're underground. They're not they're not listening to their their constituents. What can I say? This is so exasperating. It drives me insane.
It is exasperating. And I think there's an opportunity in this moment where hunger often happens in the shadows and people aren't regularly talking about SNAP, and it tends not to be people's priority issue that they're voting on. But right now, while this is in the forefront of the news and people are paying attention to it, I think there's an opportunity to elevate voices, definitely to make donations to community groups that are helping to fill in the gaps. But use your voice, because even when members of Congress are hiding out, eventually they're going to have to be accountable and responsible. And if we don't let them know that these programs are important, that they need to be funded, they need to be protected, we just can't take it for granted.
All right.
Amen.
We want to thank you both for joining us and helping us kind of understand this, understand what's at stake, understand the need. And I hope that everyone listening can just take a moment and say, what can I do in my own community? Because right now that's what it's going to take. And even with these injunctions, like Liza said and Josh said, there's still going to be some pain, especially this weekend as we try to unravel all of this. So we thank
And
you.
I just want to tack onto that and thank you for what you do. Not only being on this podcast, but thank you what you do every single hour of every single day, trying to make sure that people have their basic needs met. I can't tell you how you guys make the world a better place. And so thank you.
Thank you. That means a lot. And thank you for the interest in talking about this, really.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's a lot. That's a lot. It's hard to even it's Halloween. It's hard to think about going into tonight and celebrating and seeing kids go out trick or treating, knowing that there are parents at home wondering how they're going to feed their kids this weekend. It's just devastating.
Yeah, no, I mean it's totally unnecessary is the real problem here. It doesn't have to be this way. Um, it's this way because I've said it before. I'll say it again. The president could end this shutdown tomorrow if he just told the Congress to negotiate. I mean, it's not a huge leap to fund, uh, the supplements to keep our insurance from going through the roof, which is what the Democrats asked for. It's what the Democrats said, or Republicans said they were going to do, but they just don't want to do it because they don't have to. They control the House, Senate, and the presidency. And then you have the president who thinks he's getting political traction out of the shutdown and thinks he'll get more political shutdown traction by starving people to death. I just don't get it, man. I just don't get it. People want to get rid of the deep state. I guess if the two people we were talking to are part of the deep state, I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, maybe we ought to focus on Epstein and go back to feeding people.
Someone sent me a picture today of a bumper sticker in Billings, Montana that said John Tester equals deep state. So I guess you're in it. A
Yeah,
bumper sticker said it.
but it also had a sticker on it that said, "Vote for Trump, vote for freedom." And I'm going to tell you something. This is the president that's using electronic surveillance to surveil anybody he wants to at any moment in time. And if that's the kind of freedom that those folks voted for, then they're in a different lane than I'm in. I'll tell you that.
Um, okay, so we have just a quick little preview. We are going to do another episode. I don't know when we're going to release it, but you are going to go talk to farmers and we are going to get some on the ground conversations with
Yeah.
actual farmers. And I look forward to this.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna. The goal is to talk to a rancher, a guy who raises cows, and
Mm,
a farmer, a guy who raises crops. They talk about what's going on at the farm gate as far as profitability and prices and input costs and all that stuff. It should be interesting.
yeah.
We're looking forward to it, and I expect you to ask most of the questions.
No way. This is your lane. This is
Okay,
your lane.
I'll do it if you make
Uh,
me.
all right. So you have an old favorite on today.
Yeah, I've
I'm
got one that's backed by popular demand because, and I'm going to throw her under the bus. Mrs. Bold, the lady who gave me the Green Bay Packers hat, uh, made reference to this hat in your lack of knowledge of what MSU Northern is.
Okay, so if you haven't been around since the beginning, we've been doing this hat game for a while, and he wore this hat in the beginning, and I was just like, it just wasn't registering. I said, "What's MSUN?" So, MSU Northern is what it stands for, but, it's a good inside joke. So we're wearing an MSUN hat, and we wanna thank our guests. Again, if you have even 5 extra dollars to help or can donate some food out of your pantry this weekend, there's a lot of folks in need, and I would, encourage you to think about that and think about ways you can help. We wanna thank you for joining us here. You can find us on Substack, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube. You can shoot us an email anytime at groundedpcast@gmail.com. So we want to thank our guests, Liza Lieberman and Josh Protas, and our friends at Pearl Jam for letting us use their music. Anything I missed?
Tally ho! Have a great weekend. Have a good Halloween, folks.